All right, well, this is video number 2 in our series of installing DSFW, or Domain Services for Windows. And if you remember, the first video talked about what a DSFW is, some ideas of how to use DSFW, considerations on installing it. So again, as a recap, we would like all users inside of underneath the O, underneath the A, that includes the AAAB, and also in B and C, and all their users to be part of the domain. Now, if I did not want users, say in CE part of the domain, I just need to create a partition there. They would be outside of the domain. I would have to manually add partitions to the domain in order to provision them or make them part of the domain. Again, this is OES2 SP3, which allows for, there's two unique aspects of OES2 SP3 that are new to DSFW, specifically multiple partitions for inside a domain or part of a domain, and then the name of your domain. It does not have to map exactly to the container. Before the name had to map to the container, so I would have to have a Novell dot something, whether it's novell.com or novell.com.edu.us.au. It doesn't, something, doesn't matter how long it is. The furthest to the left that your domain name had to be Novell. That is not the case anymore. You can name it pretty much whatever you want. In this case, what we're gonna name our domain dsfw.novell.com. Now we'll get back. Again, I recommend using the documentation and going through and familiarizing yourself with the install so you understand. This tip here will help you have a successful install. Some key things to think about, and some of these are also covered in the documentation. This is a little synopsis of it. Specifically, start with a clean server. If you're doing OES2 SP1, which I don't recommend, or SP2 or SP3, this document should be updated soon for SP3. You need to start with a clean SLES10 SP3 server, or when you're installing your server, you can do the add-on product of OES and do it all at the same time. However you want to do it. In this case, we're going to start with a SLES server that's already configured. Well, I'd say not configured, already up and running. So we're not doing the install of SLES at this time. We've got SLES installed. When you install SLES, make sure that it is just bare bones SLES. You do not want to have specifically Samba or Open LDAP installed. That will cause conflicts. They'll be overwritten. You'll get notifications and they'll be removed, but just one less thing that could cause a problem. Next thing, Etsy host file. Extremely important to pay attention to your Etsy host file. Whatever is listed in here for your domain name will be the name of your domain. You will not have that ability to change it. It will be grayed out. You'll see it. If you see that it's wrong, go backwards in the wizard and come back and change your Etsy host file. You can do it through coming through your network card right here, or just editing directly to it. As you can see here, we have our domain name set up correctly. We're ready to go. The next thing I also look at is your etsyresolve.conf. This is not a requirement, but it does ensure that you're going to have or it helps ensure that you'll have a successful install. Now, the IP address of our server is a .4, 100.4. It list this server first. Your DSFW server should be listed first in your name as a name server or a DNS server, and then after that your other DNS servers listed. You say, I don't plan on using DNS on this server. DNS is not installed on the server. Why do I have it listed? DNS will be installed on this server. What you do after the install is your business. You don't have to have it on this server, but if you want to, but for the install, DNS will be installed. It is to ensure that we have the domain name, specifically your zone, and the records in the zone created properly and functioning properly. So put the DSFW server first in the resolve.conf. Something else to consider, and this is also, again, in the documentation, pretty much all this information is in the documentation. .local names. Common to see people use .local. Don't do it. DNS, when it sees a .local, this is a RFC, it does a multicast instead of a DNS query, so it could be a problem. There is a TID that talks about if you have a .local, how you can work around that and make it use DNS, but I would just avoid it. Use like a .int if you want to do an internal domain. Some other considerations as far as where you're mapping it to are in here. The max depth of your forest is 5, so 5 domains deep, and a total of 10 domains per forest. Also, something to note is a maximum of 5 domain controllers per domain. This also gets into some ideas on mapping it out, the levels of it. Something else to consider is your ACLs. To check your ACLs, go to your container that you're going to install the domain at, do the trustees, and just verify that these ACLs do not exist. In this case, public only has SSL or SS, the secret store, so we're fine. We don't have this or root listed there. If we did, we just would go through and remove those. Also, these containers, these names cannot exist directly under your domain name or under the domain container that you're mapping to. So if we had, say, a container called users, which is fairly common in smaller environments specifically, to have a container called users, that will cause a conflict. You cannot have the same name, even though it's a different object class, you cannot have the same name used underneath the domain container. So you're going to need to either move users, move this container. Again, moving containers means partitioning and then merging, moving it up, moving it to be able to move it to a different location. So renaming, moving the users, whatever it takes. You cannot have these a name like with users in particular, anything in this list, because these objects will be created. Excuse me. So, and then finally, we're getting down to this does not apply to SP3. The master will reside on the existing master, so don't worry about that. Time is important. Make sure your servers, eDirectory servers, DSFW server, are all in sync. And then finally, when you select your pattern, select DSFW and do not uncheck anything. Whatever is checked, keep it. All right, we'll see it then on the next video.